Welcome back. Time is short. Let's spend some with the muse. Welcome back. DreamForge opens for submissions on September 1st, 2024. We'll be open through September 30th. Note, we're now paying 8 cents per word for original fiction up to 7,000 words, and payment is on acceptance. Special note, while we're really excited to see story submissions following our theme, please don't self-edit your submission. If you have a great SF or fantasy piece, especially one with a positive, humanistic vibe, send it along. With our current theme, Each and Other, we invite you to explore the deep connections that bind us all, transcending the barriers of race, culture, species, or any other superficial differences. We want you to challenge the pervasive tendency in society to divide and categorize, to label some as them and others as us, creating an artificial separation that often leads to fear, mistrust, and conflict. One of my favorite stories is Barry B. Longyear's Enemy Mine, which serves as a powerful example of this theme. In this novella, a human soldier and an alien Drac are marooned together on a hostile planet. Initially, they are enemies, conditioned by their respective societies to see each other as monstrous and fundamentally different. However, as they struggle to survive, they come to understand each other's pain, hopes, and fears. The theme of transcending boundaries is not unique to Enemy Mine, but resonates through many classic works of science fiction and fantasy. Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness explores similar ideas through the lens of gender and cultural difference. If you look, you'll find many more examples. Now, let's talk about some common story flaws we see in submissions. Keep in mind that every editor has different likes and dislikes. That said, in our few minutes today, I'm going to give you an idea of common story flaws, or dislikes for me, that I see in every submission period. Even so, speaking for both myself and our first-line reader team, we enjoy reading your stories and often are proud of your progress in building skills from one submission period to the next. We can only buy a few of the thousands of stories we see every year, and we rarely have time to communicate with you. But we appreciate your work, and we wish you well. So, what's going to get your story returned, along with many others? Bad orientation is one thing for me. That's the opening of the story. I always think of starting a story as drawing the curtain back on a stage. Who do I see? What are the settings on the stage? What's the time period? What does the furniture look like? What are people doing? Is there a character there that I should focus on? I'm not talking about world building. I'm not talking about explaining the world. Just what do I see when the curtains pull back? This is often hand-in-hand related with a bad in medias res opening. Now, that means starting your story in the middle of the action. Starting the story in the middle of the action is a common technique, and it can be done well, but it takes a significant amount of skill to do it well. What we see in many submissions is simply a flurry of activity. People are running, shooting, screaming, buildings are on fire, spaceships are crashing, dragons are attacking, whatever it might be. And this goes on for pages, but we have no idea why we should care about any of this. We have no characters to focus us into the scene or to give us an anchor to tie our imaginations to as we move through the story. We really don't care that all of these things are happening. And that, will get your story sent back fairly quickly. So I would recommend, especially if you're a beginning writer, don't start your story in the middle of the action. Start your story by pulling back those curtains and letting us see who's on your stage and where that stage is. Another big thing is characters with no character. Does your protagonist have a flaw, a heart's desire, some kernel of personal reality that vividly defines them? We need to understand their hopes and dreams. We need to understand why this story is going to be important to them. If they're a cardboard cutout, that's going to be very difficult. Now, sometimes in attempting to define your story, we often see the theme of the chosen one. It becomes clear early on that the purpose of your protagonist is to be the one on whom history and fate has defined as the one chosen to lead the people or chosen to be the leader in this scenario, whatever it might be. Please try to avoid setting your character up as the chosen one. Why is usually because as the story moves on, we have no idea why your character is the chosen one. They simply are. Other characters step up to protect them, move them on, and glorify them at the end. But they really go through no trials. They don't put themselves on the line. They don't suffer in any way to improve, in a way that at the end of the story improves their character or reveals anything to us about the story. They're simply declared the chosen one, and at the end of the story, that's clear to the other characters. But we as readers really have no idea why they deserved such an accolade. Very similarly, they may not be the chosen one, but don't hold your protagonist harmless from everything. We often see stories where the main character walks through the story unharmed and unchallenged. If there's a problem, their buddies are going to take the bullet for them, or other characters are going to move forward to solve the problem. Even in the climax, we often have other characters who deal with the harsh reality of the climax, and then at the end, the protagonist is again the hero. Somehow. We don't know how. Don't hold your protagonist harmless. The purpose of the story is to challenge them. Now, one of the things we often see at the beginning of the story, after we've established the scene and our character, is that there's no inciting incident or threshold event. An easy way to think of that is, what's the fuse that starts the story? What's the piece of action that signals to the reader, oh, the chase is afoot, the story is actually underway? If the story simply rambles on with more world building or telling us more about the history of the character or whatever it might be, it can be dull if there's nothing that sets the action in motion. So give us an inciting incident. After that, we're really in the middle of the story. Does your story have any kind of try-fail cycle or series of mounting difficulties? If your protagonist or group of characters is not under stress, and you should stress them, then the stories are far less engaging. We need to see the characters overcome a difficulty, or at least try to overcome it. Even in a tragedy, they're trying to overcome a difficulty, trying to avoid the fateful event at the end. But oftentimes we'll see stories where there's simply no challenge put before the character. Now, try to avoid too much exposition. World building is an art, but even so, 90% of the world you build shouldn't be in the manuscript. It should influence the manuscript. So when we see stories that start off well, they have an interesting opening sentence, they give us a good scene, they explain, they define the character to us very economically, and then the story gets underway. One of the things we often see then is that the story devolves into exposition. Now, the writer probably thinks they're world building, but what they're really doing is spending the next 3 pages explaining the history of the world that we're in, the characters and their family relationships, the struggles that they have that in getting to the place where they are, the technology behind the spaceships or the magic system. All of those things can come out a little bit at a time in the story. But one way to think of it is, write your world building stuff and use that to influence what you're writing. Don't actually put it in the manuscript. The things that are necessary will come out. Another common flaw is God in the machine, or deus ex machina. This is where the story saves them with the cavalry instead of your characters saving themselves or solving their own problem. This usually happens when the writer writes themselves into a corner and doesn't know any other way to get people out of the scenario other than have an external force come in and save the day. Tropes. Writers often get into writing because they've been galvanized, their imagination has been galvanized at some point in their lives by something they absolutely loved. It could be Star Wars. It could be 2001: A Space Odyssey. It could be a TV show. It could be a single scene like the chestburster scene in Alien. And that filled your imagination so much and excited you and got you into the genre to the point where you want to write that again. You want to write that scene. You want to bring it into your writing. Try to avoid that. Um, Tropes are often something that readers will pick up on very easily, and they signal your writing as not being as original as it could be. Now, there are tropes that you'll be aware of and those that you're not aware of. Often, beginning writers think it's a brilliant idea to write a story in which the last two surviving characters in the scene turn out to be Adam and Eve. This idea has been going around since, I don't know, long before I was born, probably back in the 40s and 50s and before that. Many stories like that have been written. I think there have been even Twilight Zone episodes like that. So, that's not original. There's no reason that we're going to buy, that particular story, almost no matter how well written. It's simply something that's been way overdone before. So, read extensively, as you should be doing throughout your writing career, and see what other people are doing, and try not to duplicate the same things, no matter how much you like them. All stories have messages. When you use your story to preach your position in some obvious way, it becomes a Sunday sermon or an ideological screed. We as readers want to experience the life and troubles of your protagonist, really not hear your naked opinions on the world. Give us a character or characters we care about, fret with, and are eager to see how they manage to improvise and overcome the challenges in their lives. If you can, make us happy or make us cry at the end. That's writing magic. And we look forward to seeing your story. Thank you for spending some time with us today. You'll find links in the description to our submission instructions for this period, the links to the DreamForge support page, and much more. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.